Alright guys, so here I am building the outdoor patio swing or porch swing. I built this almost entirely out of 2x4s with a little bit of 1x4s for the seat portion of the swing. So pretty easy build. I got the plans from Shanty 2 Chick. It doesn't require much tools or much skill. I highly recommend it. This is one of those projects that I was kind of worried about because I was in a time crunch on. My wife and I decided we were going to host a barbecue for Easter this year. She told me a week before Easter that I needed to hurry up and build some kind of swing or bench for everyone to sit on. So this is what I went with. But it was fairly easy, so it came out quick. As you can see here, I'm assembling the base for the actual swing. This is probably the most important part because you need to make sure this is very structurally sound. So I already drilled my pocket holes in the vertical running boards, and now I'm just making sure everything is clamped well, and I'm going to make sure I attach everything as perfect as I can. Here I'm using a mallet because I always recommend using mallets when you're trying to get wood lined up perfectly. It's real easy to gently nudge those boards without causing any damage, and it makes it so you can line them up perfectly. So after getting all these screws in, I go ahead and I lift this board up vertically so I can just make sure that every single one of those screws in those pocket holes is tightened down all the way and it's fully in there. Like I said, this is the most important part of that bench, so it really needs to be structurally supportive. I need to make sure that all those pieces are in there good and that there's nothing loose or weak joints right there. As you can see, it's holding up pretty good and it came out pretty well. And once again, I'm using my Craig jig. I'll probably use this jig in almost every video I make. Like I said, this is one of my most used tools. Here I'm making the pocket holes in my pieces that are going to be used for the back of my board. And I'm using these pocket holes for the pieces that I'm going to use in the arms of this chair as well. Now that all those pocket holes are done, I'm going to go ahead and make the seat back portion of my swing. This is real simple. All I'm doing is connecting those pieces I just drilled the pocket holes into the long running 2x4 at the top. This right here may have been the hardest and most annoying part of the entire build, and the reason for that is because angles. I absolutely hate cutting angles. I don't know about you guys. If anyone has any tips or tricks, leave them in the comments because they get me every time. It took a few tries. I had to trim these a few different times, but to be honest, I really just eyeballed it, and I'm really impressed with the way it came out. I thought I was going to have to take a lot more time on it. After I made those angles, I went ahead and drilled pocket holes and connected these boards to the same seat backing. Now that I went ahead and connected those diagonal pieces, I have the back of this swing ready to go. So I'm going to connect that to the bottom base that I already built. Once I finish this, now it's actually starting to look like a real swing. I had to come grab my wife to help hold it up while I clamped it down so I could get these put in perfect. I used a little bit of wood glue on this, and then I went ahead and just drilled those pocket holes to connect the upper portion to the base of the swing. And like most of my fellow woodworkers, I like to enjoy a nice drink while I'm working. Unfortunately, today I completely ran out of all my beer, so I had to run inside and improvise real quick. And here we go. I ended up with a nice glass of Jameson. Figured that would hold me over till this was done for the day. Now that I had a quick drink break, I'm good to go back to work. So you can see here I'm adding those 1x4s to the top of my swing to make my seats. I went ahead and I added some wood glue and then clamped it down and brad nailed the boards to the top of that bench. As you can see, some of these boards are pretty wonky, so I had to make sure I used my clamps to keep them as flat as possible. That's just how it is when you buy wood from the local lumber yard. After completing that, I went ahead and I started adding these arms. So I had to go from underneath and drill that 2x4 in for the front part of that armrest. Then I added the top by pocket holes that I had made from the Craig jig earlier. Next is my least favorite part, sanding. With the swing especially, you want to make sure this is super smooth, so it took me a long time to sand it all the way down. As you can see, I had those pocket holes on the back, so I made sure to fill that with wood putty first, and then I started sanding. And as you can see here, my wife and nieces decided they wanted to get in on the action, so they helped sand a little bit, but for the most part, I took care of it myself. This is very important because you want that seat to be nice and smooth, especially the arms of this bench. Now all we have left to finish this swing is to stain it and then hang it. I went ahead and used the same stain that I used in my last video. It's the Provincial Minwax. It's a very nice color, one of my favorites for farmhouse style stuff. It has a nice rustic look and it ended up coming out great on this swing. This is an indoor stain though, so definitely I had to make sure that I add extra spray on the end. So after staining, I used the spar urethane. I typically use poly for indoor furniture and spar for outdoor furniture. Just keep that in mind. I want to make sure this wood is completely waterproof, so I had to spray it really good. I ended up actually underestimating how much I'd need, so after that first bottle I had to run back to the store, pick up another bottle, so I had enough to spray the entire thing and keep it nice and coated. And one thing I've mentioned in all my previous videos is always make sure you pick good wood from the lumber store. You want to make sure it's straight with no bends, no twists, no warps, because this is going to make that project nice, even, sturdy, and it's going to make it look good. Also, make sure you're picking wood that has nice looking designs on it. I intentionally picked that centerpiece on that seat because it had a nice streak through the middle and I loved the way it looked. I thought it would add a nice design to this bench. And then I intentionally faced each piece of this wood with something in mind. So make sure you're doing that on your projects. And here's the finished project. I got it hung up and ready to go. Looks great.